So the last thing that we did on Friday, real quickly, was going through and finding intersection, right, in our calculators. So one of the things to recognize is there's two major commands that I need you to remember from Friday. One is, where do we enter x values, which is using trace, and where do we enter y values, which is going to be the y equals. So anytime we enter any sort of a function or equation, we're going to have to go into y equals, make sure our equations by hand are in that form, and then put them into the calculator. So we've got y1, y2, we put that into the calculator. Oops, wrong laptop, sorry. And we're going to end up with a parabola that is cut by a line in two places. If you remember, you have to direct the calculator on the guess to the two different locations in order to generate the two ordered pairs. Now, one thing I don't want you to get a false sense of security about, and that's the fact that when you're doing these problems in the notes, they're often very simple, 1, 3, -3, -1. I'm going to give you problems that have extended decimals, especially on tests, so that you just don't try to move the cursor and estimate the location. I want you to actually use the commands. As we get into word problems, you're going to see that the answers are not going to be as nice as -3 and -1, which is where we want to build to use the calculator to do advanced problems. So as a warm-up today, I'd like you to try finding the intersections of these two different equations. You'll have multiple solutions. Put them in, and go into your second trace, which is calculate and find the intersection. I don't believe this is in your notes. So if you just want to quickly do it just for fun, jot down the answers. If not, if you have them for sale, they're $1. You're welcome to buy one. If you can't get one, let me know. When you go to college, you can buy tablets of it that have like the school name on the top. Okay, so you should be entering. Don't forget to solve for y for the second one. This one should give you wacky decimals. So get used to that. Ellie, you're coming second block then. Maybe the fifth. All right, did you get answers that look like these? Anyone not get those? No, are you leaving early too? Does anyone have questions how to generate either of those solutions? Here's your shot. Ask away. We're okay? 2 solutions, 3 decimal places. All right, so the last part of the lesson was using the calculator to graph different shapes. And one of the things why I have to go through all of these examples are because on each version of the calculator, it's a little bit different. And 83 is very basic, and the syntax is very childish, believe it or not. 83 plus is a little bit better. 84 plus is the best. And those of you who have color, you are in like Flint because you'll be able to see these pictures very, very easily. And the way that they are entered looks exactly like what the equations look like. So the first one we're going to enter in example 5 is the square root of x plus 2. Please note that the minus 3 is not underneath the root. So when I go into my calculator, I have the most childish, ridiculous version of this, but I'm going to use it anyway. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to put in square root, which is second x squared. I'm going to put in the x plus 2 using that variable button we talked about over here. Here's your x button. And then I need to use an ending parenthesis with a minus 3 at the end. Those of you who have the more advanced calculators, you're going to be able to right arrow and get out from underneath the root to put in the minus 3. So it'll look exactly like the equation. Okay, go ahead and graph it. Make sure you have a picture that looks like this with it shrunken down. The key vertex point should be down. So draw a quick sketch in your notes and also what the y1 looks like in your calculator. Anybody not have this? Can't get it? Can't find it? Okay? So first one is going to be square root. Next one, absolute value. Take a look, y equals absolute value of 3 minus x squared. This is not going to be the traditional V shape because it's an x squared with the absolute value. But to find the absolute value, we're going to go into the math menu, which is over here on the far left. There's a button that says math. And if you go into math, y equals, clear this out, it's math. You're going to see at the top a bunch of other menus. We're going to go into number, and notice ABS is number 1, absolute value. So I'm going to do the absolute value of 3 minus x squared, parentheses closed. And you should get a lovely W shape if you do it correctly. Okay, so in your section of important buttons, math, right arrow, number menu, absolute value. Anybody not get the W? Looks stretched out, doesn't look right. Zoom 6, standard window setting. All right, next one. Let me just pull this up so that I have it on the film. Should be getting a W shape. Next one is going to be cube roots. So our cube root command is in the math menu also. Y equals, clear this out, hit math. Notice we can go all the way down to cube root right from the beginning. X, be careful, again, that plus 1 is not underneath the root symbol. Okay. If you know anything about the cube root graph, it should go through 0, 0. Notice that it is now up 1. So rather than having it go through 0, 0, it's going through positive 1. It shifted the graph up. Should not shift it to the left. Okay, last one, and then I'm done for the day. Put a note by this one, please. Everybody, study this example. This is going to come up now. It's going to come up in Unit 3. It's going to come up in Unit 4. We're going to be graphing much more complicated than this. This is called a rational. Write that down, please. This is a rational function. X is located in the denominator of a fraction. Now, one of the things we did in the prerequisite is we often talked about order of operations. In my calculator, if I write y1 equals 1 divided by x squared plus 1, the command I gave the calculator to graph is 1 over x squared plus 1. It will do the division before anything else. This green equation is not what I was asked to graph. What I was asked to graph is an x squared plus 1 in the denominator. So I need to offset this with parentheses, unless you have the fancy calculator that when you put the fraction bar, it drops you down underneath. Okay, I don't have a fancy calculator. So when I go into my y equals and clear this out, my whole numerator is just a single digit. So I don't need parentheses there this time. But then I want to divide by x squared plus 1, all offset in parentheses. Seconds, insert, apologies, and then graph. So what I should see in my calculator is not this. This is incorrect. What I should see is y1 is equal to 1 divided by the entire denominator, as such. Okay? If I do that, I get that little tiny, looks like a little anthill.